Okay. Okay. Let's start our presentation. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Group B, and here we are would like to present about teaching second language for inclusive class with dyslexia student. Next slide, please. And our group member are Lutfi Raski, Nadia, Novita, and I'm Kaina, Rahel, Rizky Setiawan, and also Zahra Salsabila. Next. So our presentation will be 4 points. The first one is introduction about what is dyslexia, and then case identification, problem solving, and the last is implementation. Next. So the first one is the definition about dyslexia. So the dyslexia is difficulty in learning to decode or read aloud and to spell. The term dyslexia can be properly used to describe children who experience problems learning to read and write. Often, when a basic level of reading and spelling ability is established, there are persisting problems with reading fluency. Next.
Okay, and the second is the issue. In an inclusive ESL class, students with dyslexia will have difficulty learning the language, whereas English is more complicated to learn than other languages, such as Indonesian compared to normal classmates. Tenses, spelling, phonemes, etc. can be problematic for dyslexic students. Next. Dahl notes that dyslexic students often experience problems linked to, among others, things phonological processing, inaccurate representation in the long-term memory, sequencing, poor ability to differentiate between similar-looking words, and difficulty to discriminate between different sounds.
Now we enter to the case identification. The children with disabilities have the right to the full range of educational opportunities, including language learning. But ELT for special needs students in inclusive school still has many challenges, such as English language teaching context lack support structures for students with special educational needs or SIN, or for their teachers. Special educational needs or SEN is an area that has received only a little attention from English language teachers. And many English language teaching contexts like support uh, structure for students with SEN for the teacher. This stands in contrast to the mainstream education system of UK, for example, which has structures in place to help teachers achieve inclusive classroom practice. The next is ELT as a field which operates largely within the private sector, and so it's not usually subject to governmental oversight. There's a relatively little literature focusing on SEN in ELT. This may be because of ELT is a field that operates largely within the private sector, and so it is not usually subject to governmental oversight. In addition, ELT is often conducted with adult students for whom sin may not be as prominent as an issue as with children. This lack of literature issues has given impetus to investigate the kinds of training and provisions available in UK mainstream education in order to create a framework for continuing professional development or CBD in ELT with regard to SIN. Teachers must be able to create an appropriate environment for both general students and students with SEN.
So, my colleague identified at least these three problems. in his journal on 2014. First is dyslexic students have problems like link the two, among other things, phonological processing, inaccurate representation in the long-term memory, sequencing, poor ability to differentiate between similar-looking words, and difficulty to discriminate between different sounds. So it's not such a rare thing if dyslexic student make a mistake on spelling. And the second is students with dyslexia often suffer their environment reaction to their special situation as well. Moreover, if a dyslexic student in an inclusive classroom where there are general students and dyslexic students, uh, for dyslexic students, social stigma will such a big challenge for them because some people may tend to think that bad spelling such a it's a stupidity. So this this problem can cause dyslexic student increase their anxiety. So and then the third problem that neglected is students with dyslexia tend to face a problem in higher education. So even in his research, McCulloch said that dyslexic students tend to discontinuing their education to higher education. It's because they tend to have high stress and anxiety regarding to transition to higher education. And also on general classroom, also in inclusive classroom, uh, reading activity is oftenly required. Next slide will present by my friend.
So the problem solving by Cosmos, Caesar, and Sakardi, 2009. The first is create creative materials such as using longer font size and wider line spacing, etc. Second, adjust teaching methods and learning environment, remove negative social attitudes. And the third is create greater assessment options. Next slide, please.
Okay, this slide is about problem solving based on inclusion, movement, and classroom. The first one is teacher must be able to create a fun and varied learning atmosphere and also various presentation. For example, for dyslexia students who have difficulty in reading, when you teach them like alphabet A, B, C, instead of just say that ABC and then ask them to repeat it, maybe you can bring a picture of apple to represent A, or bear for B, cat for C, and so on. And also, they are going to need a system that is phonic based to help them in reading. For example, we can use movement, dances, or songs to remember different spelling rules. And second, the teacher may have to reteach or reteach the student. So dyslexia student may not understand the material as fast general student. So to ensure them understand the learning material properly, as the teacher, you may need to give them extra classes or maybe extra note. Third is teachers should know what their student needs. So we know that dyslexia students have difficulty in writing. So allow your student to use technology as a tool. For example, like smartphone or Chromebooks, and some program like spell check or Grammarly to support them. Next, please.
So the implementation in ESL class. disabilities. The first, teacher uses a laptop in delivering learning materials using align spacing, uh, the cider and letters that have larger font. Uh, Next is the teacher gives printed materials that have different colors to help the students with dyslexia to understand the material clearly because the material is have different colors that make it the material become clear. Then the teacher uses game observe and remember in delivering learning. And the implementation number two, Cosmos, Caesar, and Socrates suggest that adjusting the old assessment method, such as create a test and correcting their work without grading them. Also, try not to assess every little thing, such as spelling. So, what is meant by old assessment is like create some task or quiz, and then the teacher will just give a mark to the wrong answer, then give a grade. This old assessment may have to do. The meaning of correcting their work without grading them is we ask a teacher so advise on their work and give a pattern about the correct work instead of underline their wrong work with red mark. If the teacher does that, it will increase the student anxiety.
Okay, so next is ELT in inclusive school with dyslexia students. IEP sign. The first one is, what is it? IEP. Individual education planning, or IEP, is the process where teachers, support personnel, and parents work together as a team to meet the needs of individual students who require a range of support. The team develops outcomes or goals based on a student's current needs and skill, and write the plan for the school year in the student IEP. The individuals with the Individual with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, federal special education law for students with disabilities. An IEP can provide the special design instruction needed for students who are behind in academic instruction in academic area, including reading and spelling. This instruction is specially designed or individualized based upon a combination of a student unique needs, test result, and learning profile. Uh, the next one is primary benefit of IEP. So the primary benefit is the first one is the fulfillment of individual learning needs for students with special needs. Then IEP can meet the needs of this student due to prior assessment of the strategies required based on the individual student's condition, and then the material method will be accordingly accommodated or modified. The student condition is like describing student profile. Also, there is a benefit of IEP for teachers and for family. I'll give some example. The benefit IEP for teachers is like to support the preparation of daily teaching plans and to improve communication and teamwork of IEP. Then the benefit IEP for the family is that the parents will understand the characteristic, strength, and weaknesses of the child, and also parents can interest. Parents can also gain knowledge about the modification of the child's behavior and can monitor child development. Then, what is it the goal of IEP? The goal of IEP, the first one is identify child's individualized educational needs, then set specific goals and objectives, and determine other educational needs. Next. What is dyslexia students need in classroom? The first one is specialized instruction and specialized arrangement for tests, then extra time for tests, homework, and taking notes in class. Uh, they dyslexia student also need accommodation, modifications, and support to bridge the gap between their literacy abilities and grade level requirements. An EIP also provides these needed accommodation such as assistive technology, read aloud, dictation to scribe or speech to text, and extend time for those whose testing shows a need for this service and accommodation. Then, what teacher can do? A student with dyslexia may avoid reading because it can be stressful and tiring. As a result, they can end up missing valuable reading practice and fall behind their classmates. This can hurt their self-esteem. Recognizing and appreciating their strength in math, sport, drama, art, creative problem solving, and others. This all can provide critical emotion support. Then, uh, other helpful strategies for student is like providing extra time to uh, practice reading, connecting them with the trained tutors, and giving reading assignment in audio format, offering customized learning aids and computer software. With the proper assistant, most students with dyslexia can learn to read and develop strategies that allow them to stay in a regular classroom. The next slide will be presented by Novi.
Okay, it's time to UDLs. ELT and inclusive school with dyslexic students in UDL site. The first is introduction. The definition of universal design for learning is a way of thinking about teaching and learning that helps give all students an equal opportunity to succeed. This approach offers flexibility in the ways students access material, engage with it, and show what they know. UDL goal is to use a variety of teaching methods to remove any barriers to learning and give all students equal opportunities to succeed. And it's just about building in flexibility that can be adjusted for every student's strength and needs. Okay, next. There are three main principles of UDL. The first is representation. Representation is UDL recommends offering information in more than one format. For example, the teacher gives text box that are primary visual, and the second is action and expression. UDL suggests giving kids or students more than one way to interact with the material and to show what they have learned. For example, a student might get to choose between taking a pencil and paper test, giving an oral presentation, or doing a group project. And the last is engagement. UDL encourage a teacher to look for multiple ways to motivate students. Teachers let the students make choices and giving them assignments that feel relevant to their lives are some example of how teacher can sustain students' interest. And the next. Implementation for dyslexic students. For practice in representation, the teacher asks students to write letters in the air on the floor, forming the letter with wax, or by writing large letters on a piece of paper. And for the action and expression, the teacher gives students the opportunity to choose how to understand the materials visually and audio. Dyslexic students tend not to be able to spell, so it is better to the teacher to give students freedom in choosing other ways to understand the material. And the last is engagement. The teacher writing the words to be studied on a paper with crayons, and the next students will trace the writing with their finger, and it can practice their textile and kinesthetic. When tracing and writing, the students saw the writing visual and said it aloud, or we can say auditory. And the next slide is Nadia.
Okay. Can you play the video, Rizky?
In this video, we're going to look at some teaching strategies, accommodations, and modifications for students with dyslexia. One teaching strategy that you can do is provide well-done, exemplary examples of finished products. This will help clarify and provide a framework for students to create their own work. Another strategy is to assign reading buddies. This is similar to peer tutoring, except it's less formal. Classrooms should aim to have designated quiet places for students with dyslexia to be able to read in peace. The longer the reading assignment, the more challenging it will be for a child with dyslexia. It's advantageous for students when teachers chunk or break down reading assignments. One way to better help these children read is to use large print texts. It makes words easier to recognize just because of the size. Teachers should pre-teach vocabulary to dyslexic students before reading any type of short story, novel, or other reading assignment. Sentence starters are another effective teaching strategy. Teachers use sentence starters to give students ideas on how to start their paragraphs and sentences. Diagnosis and frequent assessment are necessary for long-term reading success for students with dyslexia. Colored overlays are an inexpensive tool that may benefit dyslexic children. They are all meant to alleviate stress and help remove symptoms associated with dyslexia. Provide letter strips for these children. Teachers can place these on student desks to help improve letter recognition. School districts need to understand that dyslexia is a disability, which puts these students at a grade for content. A great strategy to help improve reading for dyslexic children is to enlist their parents and guardians to help out and work to improve the quality of their child's education. Because these students have difficulties reading and recognizing words, audio supports are a great supplement to any reading activity. Another great supplemental support is text-to-speech software. I encourage parents, teachers, and advocates to put pressure on the school district to pay for this software if needed. Dyslexic students may not comprehend material the first reading. Give these students multiple opportunities. Teachers should incorporate interesting topics for the students into the class readings. This may get them excited. Next, teachers should consider utilizing a multi-sensory approach to instruction. I'm not talking about learning styles. I'm talking about allowing students to learn through multiple modalities. And lastly, provide students with guiding questions during their reading assignments. Let these questions point your students in the right direction while keeping them engaged in the assignment. Anyway, right now I want to thank you for your time. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel.
So as we can see from the video, they provide a lot of strategies that maybe teachers already use some strategies, but they provide more strategies so it could make the teaching and learning process in the class gonna be perfect. So I think that's all from us. Remember that inclusion is not
In this
about,
video, we're going to look at some
but it is all about unquestioned acceptance. So I think that's all. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.